Love them or hate them, they've been here for 55 years. In the railway world, that makes them antiques. Once they were everywhere. In days gone by, the best way to keep people and trains safe from harm. But now the state's last air-driven and skirted gates have reached the end of the line. In peak times, 650 cars and 250 pedestrians use this crossing every hour. And although the gates protect people, more often than not, they're a source of frustration.
A lot of different things go on here. There are a lot of people you see, just the silly things people do in their cars here.
What do they do?
Well, they park across here, and when you put one of the gates down, they panic, they don't know which way to go. It's different to work here. It's pretty small. It's a challenge with these gates.
Why is that?
Just trying to get them down with the peak hour traffic here. You know, no one wants to be caught at the gates, so they try to get through.
The gates will be torn down on May the 30th. New electrically driven gates, controlled a little further up the track, will be installed in early June.
Sea rockets, devil's twine, pigface and barbed wire grass are the frontline weapons against the onslaught of the elements and people on the beach environment.
It would have to be the harshest in Australia, really. And so whatever help we can give, it needs at the moment.
Under its Dune Care program, the Department of Soil Conservation is enlisting volunteers to work alongside professionals in the labour-intensive task of dune stabilisation and replanting. This is then backed up by an ongoing management plan.
And in the long term is really change people's attitude to use the beach. Get the beach users to realise that this beach won't be here forever unless they respect it and use it the right way.
The education process begins in the classroom. The new book, Beach Plants of South Eastern Australia, has been distributed to most coastal high schools.
The education system now is saying, yes, there are mistakes, but this is how we can fix it. So it's looking at how we can actually interact and improve our environment so we can live in it.
And that's where the book comes in?
With an already super reputation overseas and within Australia, Auski continues to grow in stature each year, and this year's event is the strongest yet.
This year, it's the toughest year ever, actually. We've got all the international skiers who are on the podium at the Worlds. There's 1, 2, 3, and then we've got the finalists in the Pro Tour in the US. They're all here, so it's going to be a real tough year.
Bruce Neville has dominated the past 3 years, winning the prestigious jumps event and driving away in a brand new car. But in '92, his mortgage on Auski is under threat from a diminutive Canadian, Jim Clooney, who only last weekend jumped 61.4 metres to win Moomba.
Really makes for terrific memories. I don't want to sort of dwell on it all season though. I'd like to get another good tournament under my belt right off the bat, and you know, I've done well here in the past 2 years, and I'm looking to continue that this year.
The slalom event is wide open, with Swede Mike Schallander free from injury worries for the first time in a while, and he's in super form along with Simon Hill from South Australia. The ladies' slalom and the jump will also be a hard-fought battle, with many overseas stars throwing down the gauntlet to the Aussies.
Tony Neville, who I'm sure everybody's heard of, is a very confident jumper and slalommer, and Sherry Sloan, who's the world jump champion, and Emma Shears, who's an up-and-coming junior who's put some excellent results on the board and is getting very tough to beat.
And rounding out Auski, which gets underway on the Williams River tomorrow morning, is the Tricks, the third facet of tournament skiing, and Mick Neville will be hard to toss here.
The report released late last year is the second of two that deals with funding for the Department of Community Services. The meeting today gave those concerned the chance to air their views on the report that threatens to cut funding to centres by $10,000 to $20,000 and reassess the fee subsidy that may force families on the North Coast to withdraw their children from local childcare centres.
There's a concern that there will be a reduction in base subsidies, that there will be some radical changes to the economic needs subsidies and changes as well to subsidies affecting children with disabilities and from non-English speaking backgrounds.
Economic proposals in the paper were made in 1990 when the report was first drafted. Local teachers and parents feel the budget estimates are out of date, not allowing for increasing administration costs.
There are also some fairly radical suggestions in relation to economic needs subsidies. The present system for helping people in financial difficulties with early childhood education is inadequate, but the suggested changes are fairly far-reaching, and we're worried that they'll have an adverse impact.
Discussion and group sessions were held, with all attending encouraged to approach their local MP with their opinions.
Hunter electorates have been the staunchest in the Labor fold. With the party's parliamentary position strengthened after the entrants' by-election win, Deputy Opposition Leader Dr F Shorgie was preaching to the faithful. Agenda items included discussions on health cuts, education, transport and welfare, and assurances from the Deputy Leader that the party would pay heed to its grassroots membership in Newcastle and the Hunter.
We've got to listen and make sure we never stop listening to the grassroots. But there's a message also the other way, that we need better representation in the form we need more women, and we need more blacks, and we need more young people in our party.
Dr F Shorgie urged members to extend traditional party values to embrace other areas of need within the community, including Aboriginal issues.
At the moment, it is not good enough to say that we have a Labor movement with good policies. We need to make sure that Labor movement reflects the wider population.
The findings of a committee headed by former Transport Minister Peter Morris tip a bucket on the old excuse that it's the wharfies holding up the flow of goods from the port to the warehouse. The committee fires a broadside at other sections of the distribution industry.
All of this is private sector operations. It's not government to do it, it's businesses to do it. What the inquiry shows is that business itself has been very lax. There's a high degree of apathy. There's a high degree of ignorance as to how they could improve the services to and from the waterfront, how they could reduce their costs. We have quite a degree of inefficiency, apathy and ignorance.
The Port of Newcastle has led the way in waterfront reform and now attracts cargo handling contracts away from operations in Sydney and Melbourne, where goods become tied up in official red tape or left on the dock until office hours. Where waterfront reforms have been achieved, the inquiry found benefits had not flowed on.
This nation is not going to get the benefit of the improvements that have taken place on the waterfront in Newcastle and other ports unless the people who use those services now lift their game and pass on the benefits to the people who ship the products, the shippers. And that those benefits don't go into the pockets of government through port authorities or into the pockets of the shipping companies through the shipping lines.
Those eager for a drop of the new McQuiggan Brothers wine crowded its national launch. Hunter identity and winemaker Brian McQuiggan has released 5 new labels including a Chardonnay, Hermitage, Traminer Riesling, Shiraz and Graves.
The number of people here and the attitude of the people, it's just terrific, and it feels like being home again.
Others sampled the sounds and atmosphere of Hamilton's first jazz festival. Thousands turned out to listen to 10 bands. All tastes were catered for, from Dixieland to modern jazz, with Hamilton businesses offering a cosmopolitan flavour. The Jazz Festival continues until 8 tonight.
Matrix Aeronautics wants to build the aircraft maintenance facility on land adjacent to the Williamtown RAAF base. The state government today granted the company the option of leasing the 200-hectare site owned by the Hunter Water Corporation. It's now up to the company to lodge a development application with Port Stephens Shire Council. The Williamtown development is part of a $180 million venture, which will include a similar facility at Townsville on Queensland's far north coast. In the Hunter alone, the project could generate up to 1,200 jobs. Currently, only 4% of the world's jets are maintained in Australia. Matrix hopes to boost this with the new Williamtown facility. The company says if all goes according to plan, the facility should be fully operational by 1994.
What's the total number there, boy? 677 35. Yeah, we just did it. We got told this wasn't good.
These patients have cancer. They are all having chemotherapy, which is a conventional way doctors treat the disease. Some patients who discover they have cancer seek additional treatment. The alternative therapy movement is not seen as the enemy of conventional medicine. Many doctors agree that extra therapies can complement the patient's treatment. However, Professor Forbes from the Mater Hospital is concerned that some cancer patients are being misled by therapists who, he says, are nothing more than faith healers.
I'm certainly aware of patients who have apparently been advised to not take conventional medicines, not have them completed, when they're clearly of benefit.
Cheryl Freeman is a former nurse. She's been working with cancer sufferers in the Newcastle area. She says some therapists are representing themselves as doctors when they're not qualified.
They're also encouraging people to stop their medications, their chemotherapy, their radiation therapy, not to have surgery, and that is an extremely dangerous message to get into the community for inexperienced lay people to have to cope with.
Cheryl Freeman says one therapist is telling people who've been diagnosed with cancer that they don't have it. Professor Forbes agrees that some therapists are making false claims.
If patients give up their conventional treatments, that's their right, and they should do it, but they're entitled to have an informed basis for that decision. If the decision is not based on common sense and science, the patient is being misled, and I think that's a fraud.
Professor Forbes is urging patients to consult their doctors and legitimate support groups before abandoning their established treatment. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The project comes close to throwing money into the sea. Each year, storms sweep 10,000 cubic metres of sand toward the port's entrance. Big blows in the 1980s left homes and a road teetering on the edge of the surf. The Great Lakes Shire Council has adopted a dredging program of pumping sand from the mouth of the Myall River to replenish the beach's frontline defence against storms. The 2.5 kilometre pipeline has deposited 55,000 cubic metres of sand on the beach, as well as another 10,000 in store for an emergency. The dredging process has also reopened a navigation channel near the river mouth to small craft. Locals will help replant the dunes. The project cost $375,000 and was funded by the state government and council. The job is nearing completion, but the work doesn't end there.
This is expected to last at least 5 years, and then council will consider the project again when the time comes.
Bob Collard has been to the Ukraine twice. A few weeks ago, he helped distribute a plane load of food, but says despite relief efforts, many people are still going hungry.
A lot of the fruit and vegetables that was coming onto the market was of very poor quality, but it was there, but it was outside the financial ability of a lot of people to pay. There is enough food in the world to feed all the world, it's just in the wrong places. And the second problem is the wrong people have got the money, and they're trying to get more, of course. So the West needs to help as much as it can in terms of keeping people's stomachs full. It's an amazing place with all that it's been through in the last century particularly, and people are struggling with what's happened in the last couple of years.
Three-day eventing is a fast and sometimes furious sport.
If I was getting paid for stunts, I'd reckon I'd get paid plenty of money. I try not to do that. And it's part of the game, it's part of the trust between the horse and the rider. And if that sort of fractures a fraction, oh, it's just no go.
Even the champions take each jump at a time. 33-year-old Heath Ryan is one of the best. He's already represented Australia 4 times at Trans-Tasman and world titles. Now he's pushing for a chance at the Olympics.
It's really starting to come down to the crunch now. It's forget sort of spouting, I'm going to go to the Olympics and, oh yeah, I can do it. And it's down to the time when your name actually appears in print.
The 3-day event tests all the skills of the rider and horse, from dressage, cross-country endurance to show jumping. This weekend, the top Aussie stars will compete in the Dungog horse trials. In 3 weeks, the Olympic selectors will watch them at a Lochinvar meet. Heath Ryan has no doubt the Australians can do well at Barcelona, definite medal chances. The hunter will play a major part in that effort. At least 3 riders are in the running to make the team, and the future looks even brighter.
I believe within 10 years, 75% of the Olympic team will originate from the Hunter Valley.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The yes vote cast by the majority of white South Africans in their referendum not only means apartheid continues to be dismantled, it also gives the rest of the world more reason to embrace the Republic and all it has to offer. To some sections of the hunter industry, that's cause for some economic concern as South Africa becomes a competitor for markets, particularly in the sale of coal.
But there's no doubt, it just puts an extra player in the game that's been withdrawn for a while, and that's going to put more pressure on us as far as trying to maintain our own share of the market is concerned.
Economist Dr. Roy Green argues the increasing trade presence of South Africa will put pressure on hunter industry. But he says, in turn, the hunter could join the rush to South Africa to make the most of growing consumer demands.
Australia needs to get there first. We need to start developing those links now, particularly through our good offices with the ANC, which will become a very important component of any new coalition government in South Africa, hopefully within the next couple of years.
If there's caution among the economists at what the continuing reforms mean, there's delight among sports people. 4-time world champion surfer Mark Richards was blacklisted for competing in South Africa in the early 1980s. He sees the Republic now riding on the crest of a new wave in the surfing world.
It means it will be easier for the guys to go over there and compete. And when we were going, it was always made very clear that we were competing individually. We were no part of an Australian team. So this now leaves the way open for Australian surfers to compete over there as a team, and also for South Africa to be involved in the World Amateur Surfing titles again.
The emerging New South Africa is also expected to create a first for the Hub of the Hunter Bowls tournament. The competition organisers have heard that the South African Masters champion, Cyril Lahana, has received permission from his country to compete out here at Easter. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
No, it's not every day that you see the fairer sex crouched over a queue, exhibiting a fine stance and a smooth stroke. But then again, the pool halls of old weren't the place a lady would readily visit. In the past few years, snooker has come of age, a well-respected sport and one that is often family-orientated. And in Karen Carruthers' case, it was join her husband in his love of snooker or spend hours alone at home. And it has proved a blessing in disguise, as Karen will be one of the favourites in next weekend's Australasian Ladies Snooker Championship at the Belmont 16-footers, the first tournament of its type in the country. As is often the drawback, ladies snooker is suffering from lack of exposure.
We've got actually 12 girls playing in local snooker, 6 in the competition. We hope to show that we can be as good. And there's a lot of very good girls in the tournament which will show the tops.
Heading the bill is Albury's Margaret Gorski, and besides Karen, the main opposition will come from Kiwi Lorraine Field. Also in the field is first-timer Raylene Fullerlove, and the nerves have already set in.
It's the first time I've actually been playing, and I hope to get a good distance in it.
Police have charged a 20-year-old man with stealing and goods in custody after discovering 69 pairs of women's underwear and lingerie in a Birmingham Gardens house. Also found women's aerobic and sportswear. Police found the collection after questioning the man about a stolen pushbike. It's alleged the underwear was taken from clotheslines in the Merriweather, Cooks Hill and Bar Beach areas over the last 2 years. That's not the only incidents of snowdropping brought to police attention. Last night, 2 Hamilton South men aged 19 and 20 were charged with goods in custody after police discovered these wet clothes in bags they were carrying.
It's about 2:30 this morning in Railway Street at Merriweather. Police stopped 2 young boys walking down the street with 2 large bags of wet clothing.
Some of the clothes even had pegs still attached to them. Police say until today they had no reports of clothesline theft. This morning they had taken well over 50 phone calls.
Why don't you think people call in and tell you about this kind of theft?
The ladies have told us they're embarrassed to report their underwear stolen.
Anyone who recognises their clothes should contact police.
Rugby Sevens has caught the attention of sports-crazed Australians, with tournaments springing up all over the country and also different football codes adopting the Sevens format. At Uralla this weekend, it was the turn of teams from all over northern New South Wales and even one from Mudgee to chase the prize in a tournament that is going from strength to strength.
Well, last year we had 19 teams and this year we're on 27, so each year we're getting bigger and bigger. Next year I think we'll have to secure a third field and things do look bright so long as everybody's happy.
But according to Richard Lyne, the standard has dropped a little bit from previous years.
Some teams this year have been disappointing, whereas others have been surprising. Some of the stronger teams aren't as strong today as what they should be, but some of the other sides are playing better and more attractive seven-a-side rugby.
In this game, Armidale Old Boys in the blue looked good on occasions and scored this smart try right under the uprights. But in the final analysis, St Albert's too were far superior, winning 18-6. Conditions were warm but ideal for crunch day in the Ford Futures Championship. Semi-finals to be decided, and for South Australian Roger Rashid, disappointment as a back injury robbed him of any mobility and he succumbed easily to Grant Doyle, 6-love, 6-love. The other men's semi-final was a beauty with John Frawley up against surprise packet Brett Richardson. Both used heavy topspin on the clay courts, and it was the Queenslander Frawley who battled hard before taking the first set 7-5. Frawley then stepped up the pace, got the vital break and went on to take the match 6-4 in the second to advance to the final. In the ladies, Danielle Thomas will meet Cynthia Durner in the ladies' final. For many years, the minnows of the Winfield Cup, the Steelers have come of age. A win in the Challenge Cup and a gritty, if unspectacular, start to the season proper. A 14-all draw with the Newcastle Knights outfit that tackled themselves to a standstill. It was that defensive effort by the Knights that drew high praise.
We had the ball 3 times in the last 15 minutes and they scored on the 24th tackle, and that sells heaps for our defence and courage. And I think that's one of the things that we built this team on, and I think they showed the people in Newcastle they've got plenty of that back.
Many thought Illawarra may have been a little flat after the euphoria of the Tooheys Cup win, but led by brilliant lock Ian Russell, they threw everything at the Knights and finished the stronger.
We've had a pretty hard campaign in the Challenge Cup. Get 1 point here today after our big week was pretty important to us. Now we can get into the usual, weekend Sunday to Sunday football. We've had a lot of travelling and a lot of going away, but we'll be happy to go back to Wollongong next week.
And courageous captain Chris Walsh was just happy to walk away with a point.
They got to a lead and then we fought back, and I thought our blokes hung in there pretty well and kept going, so we're pretty happy with the draw.
For the Knights' many good performances, none better than the electrifying form of John Schuster. All the action of the Knights Illawarra match from 10:30 tonight on NBN.
The West Tamworth Greens are in perfect condition for the singles, the 7th year the event has been staged. Last year's champion Rob Perella couldn't make it to defend his crown, but plenty of class players are waiting in the wings. Not the least 1991 runner-up Cohiba's Bob King, Australian rep John Snell and the New South Wales Bowler of the Year Sam Laguza.
Anyone could win it, really.
Up for grabs $6,000 in prize money for the 24 competitors playing a round-robin format. The heat began to warm up today with round 1, and there are 2 more days of play before the finals on Friday morning.
The provision of electricity to the new Boral blue metal quarry at Hillgrove provided the County Council with one of its biggest challenges yet. They could either go around the edge of the gorge for 6 kilometres or go straight across. Taking the latter option, New England Electricity today used helicopters to ferry the conductors for the 3-phase 11 kilovolt line across the gorge.
It's a 1,400 metre, almost 1.4 kilometre span across the gorge, 3-phase conductor.
The project will take 2 days to complete. One of the time-consuming parts will be ensuring that other aircraft are aware of the new line.
The time is mostly consumed in fixing these aircraft warning spheres.
New England Electricity says the $100,000 line, when operational, should be maintenance-free because of its location.
Last year, Sue Halstead was doing the banking for a Newcastle service station. On the way to the bank, a youth tried to grab the takings. A struggle followed when Sue refused to hand over the money.
I can vaguely remember seeing his fist coming, but it was too late and he punched my face. And as a result, I let go of the money and he just ran off.
Sue's cheekbone was smashed. It was reconstructed with a metal plate. Today, Sue took her place in the audience at the Crime Prevention Seminar at Western Suburbs Leagues Club. So what do you do if you find yourself in a similar situation?
Cooperate, don't make any sudden moves and do everything he tells you at all times.
Even though banks take precautions, staff and customers are put in life-threatening situations when armed hold-ups occur. Police say stay calm.
They should be thinking about their own self-preservation initially, but they should also be thinking of our observation tips that we give them.
Any information about the robber, particularly distinguishing marks or tattoos, could lead to an arrest. Police have stressed the importance of counselling for the victims of these crimes. The free seminar is open to the public. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
While the multi-lane roadway and smooth gradients make the F3 easy going, its rock walls and Armco barriers are unforgiving when things go wrong. Since the Mooney Bridge was opened in 1986, there have been 11 fatalities on the freeway and countless other accidents, many of them multi-vehicle collisions, most occurring in wet conditions. Police say that as soon as there's a shower of rain, they expect the calls to start. When it rained yesterday, 9 accidents were reported on the freeway. Police say one accident usually leads to another. There appears to be nothing wrong with the road surface. If anything, it's too good.
I think the fact that they're travelling in a multi-lane situation with very few hard turns and the need to stop and brake, they tend to get a bit insular in that regard, I think.
And when something does go wrong, they're just travelling too close?
In many occasions, that seems to be the case. They just don't give themselves the latitude to manoeuvre should anything go wrong. They must think more and put a bit more concentration into what they're doing and try to assess what's happening before it happens.